And good day. Thank you for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time, and we are powered on Webcast One Live. We thank you for tuning in with us. It's a little bit out of the ordinary. We are pre-taping, I won't lie. I won't try and cheat and make you think this is live on Wednesday. If you can't call in today, it's because we've already pre-taped. But if you're listening right now on Monday afternoon when we're actually pre-taping, you can call in. That number is 855-244-0077. We're going to shift away from the Common Core just ever so briefly. We will be back on it because it's a very important topic, and it's not gone. It is very much alive in Iowa, unfortunately, even with all the attempts and the legislation in trying to do away with it. It's also very much alive in several other states, even though over 30 states are trying to repeal, reject, pause, or in some way remove the Common Core. But we're going to step away to another issue that I would say is probably every bit as dangerous to your child's innocence and education, to local control, to parental rights, and to your privacy as a family. And that is the or so-called anti-bullying bills that are sweeping the nation. There happen to be several in a variety of states. It's coming on just as Common Core. In fact, the two movements, I would say, mirror each other very much. In a sweeping across the nation. I'm very pleased to have an expert guest panel with me today. Joining me by phone is Linda Harvey. You may recognize that name because she's written several books, and her latest one is Maybe He's Not Gay. Maybe He's Not Gay is available now online, I believe. And Linda is with missionamerica.com. She's written extensively on this issue for decades, I think, and even on the occult and understanding how that was being pushed on our kids in the public schools as well. So I've enjoyed interviewing her over the years. And also joining us will be Dawn Stefanowicz. Dawn Stefanowicz is from Canada, but she's no stranger to America and what's happening here. In fact, I would say sometimes she has her hand on the pulse of America better than many who live here. She had a good understanding of what was coming with the homosexual agenda in that parents, biological parents, would be reduced and would lose their rights with their children in an effort and a movement of the pro-homosexual agenda. And let me just clarify it. I'll come back to that. So I'm thrilled to have Dawn join us. Her book is Out From Under, available online. Dawn was raised in a home with a homosexual parent, and you will hear in her voice how much she loves her parents, but she can tell you the impact of that. And then also joining me in studio, the Honorable Danny Carroll, former representative here in Iowa. He was a leader and a champion on protecting the family as God created it in office. And now that he's out of office, he's a leader and a champion on the family as God has protected it in a variety of roles where he's working now. So I guess first I'll thank Linda. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, Linda. I've enjoyed interviewing you over the years, and I've told the folks about your book, Maybe He's Not Gay, but I want to say hello to all of our panel here. And so, Dawn, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Tamara.
Dawn, I don't know how many years it's been, but I followed you before you were even going public. I think it was Maggie, I can't think of her last name, help me out. Gallagher. Wrote the article about you, and it touched my heart so much. And I tried to find you then, and then was so pleased when you did come to interviews and speaking, and come to find out, Dawn Stefanowicz, you've been here in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, to speak, and our guest in studio, Danny Carroll, remembers you.
Yes, hi,
Thank
Dawn.
you. Hi, Danny. Thank you very much.
Good to be on with you today, and Linda, you too as well.
Oh, thank you very much, Danny.
All right. So here's the point I want to clarify, and you all can join on this however you wish. And I'll moderate when necessary, but I think that we probably all can talk. I don't think there's any delay really, so I think we'll all be able to talk with each other just as if we were having coffee across the nation. But I want to make clear, this is not in any way to demean anyone. This conversation is not to be hurtful. It's not that we feel like anyone is lesser than. But in fact, these anti-bullying bills, and correct me if I'm wrong, are Linda and Dawn, but these bullying bills actually do not help those they are meant to help, and will hurt far more. And so, Linda or Dawn, I don't know who would like to go first on that.
Well, I will jump in here because, as you said, Tamara, this is not about, the bullying bills are actually not about bullying, as it turns out, an awful lot of the time. The push for these bills is coming from the homosexual lobby. And the reason is because it's not as though there's not bullying, and it's not as though there is not bullying related to the issue of homosexuality, and some kids are bullied for that reason. However, schools have been perfectly empowered all along to punish bullying when it happens, and they should. However, no school needs to endorse homosexual, bisexual, or transgendered, gender-confused behavior in order to prevent or punish bullying. And that is the allegation of all these bills. That's the built-in implication, because almost all of them are adding the enumerated categories of sexual orientation, and I believe gender identity is in your current bill. And what they're trying to do is it's a backdoor way of endorsing the homosexual lifestyle and silencing anyone and labeling them as a bully or potential bully who objects to that. And that means parents, that means students who are conservative Christian, just have common sense, and it flips everything upside down. Behavior that we should be cautioning children about is now going to be seen as inborn like race when there's no evidence of that either. So that's just in a nutshell my quick take on this.
And Don, I think you were the one who brought in the fact that these are happening all over the nation. You told me about Minnesota, what was going on there. So it's not just Iowa. It's happening in Minnesota. It's happening in Massachusetts. And I think it was you, Don, who explained that the Department of Justice, well, actually, Linda, in your column, I know you wrote about it, but Don, I think you and I were talking about on the phone. The Department of Justice is now deciding that it needs to have oversight into these schools.
I actually have an article that, addresses this. And one thing I do want to mention, though, at the state level is the fact that the state is creeping into individual community schools that are state-run and dictating to them through this bill how they will deal with any aspect of bullying. And we know that 80% of bullying is about physical features, not about sexuality, gender identity, and so on. And so the other thing that we are aware of with children and teens is that they are emotionally and psychologically vulnerable and easily influenced by these anti-bullying programs, which actually give ideas to our children and teens on how to bully, not really about stopping bullying and harassment. So we have to focus in on the students and how they respond, and we have to consider the fact that this will definitely encroach into the personal lives, the private lives of our families.
And Don, that's absolutely correct. Danny, in the Iowa bill, if I understand it correct, superintendents will be given authority over outside activities, outside school activities, or off-premise activities into the cyberspace world. So, and I understand off-premise, it may be a school activity on another school grounds. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about heading to the movie theater, going on a picnic. If you say something one day, this is the other concern, it's not that it's what you say, but what somebody else hears in what you say.
A lot of subjectivity in it, Tamara. First of all, they have to determine that it's had some impact on what's happening at school, but that's at the discretion of a school administrator, and that in itself cuts both ways, because I'm not so sure that school officials across the state of Iowa want this responsibility in the first place.
Right.
Because it's just as easy to come back on them and say, you did not aggressively pursue this like you should have. Now you're under the gun. On the other hand, we've got a law that's sort of giving approval, encouragement, if not a legal requirement, that they go into the community having nothing to do with school and be bully police. And so it's just fraught with peril any way you look at it.
When we made teachers mandatory reporters, we really put a division between parents and teachers. We put them on opposite sides of the student. We would like to think that anybody who cares for a student who sees something concerning would report it.
Mm-hmm.
But by making them mandatory reporters, we put a wedge between parents and teachers who should be working together. And I think the same thing will happen in this instance. You will no longer want to see your school superintendent at an event.
Look at what we're putting on school districts, teachers. You've talked about Common Core. You and I have talked about all the demands that's put on public schools. And this is just that's just another layer of bureaucracy already. And now the Iowa bill, Senate File 2318, and there was a House file that was very similar, is putting training and qualification requirements on school districts. Tamara, 50 years ago, we took prayer and the Bible out of the public school. And look at what we're dealing with today. There are two bills in the Iowa legislature, one on bullying prevention and the other one on suicide prevention. Did you ever think that those would be the subjects occupying the attention of lawmakers today in public schools? That we'd be trying to figure out a way to control bullies and keep kids from killing themselves. And yet this bill will probably, if it becomes law, and our governor, Terry Branstad, is supporting it. It's one of the things he highlighted in his State of the State address at the beginning of this legislative session. So it's probably going to pass, probably going to become law. The Senate file has $1 million in it, and my guess is the Democrat-controlled Senate will find a way to increase that to something more than $1 million, and this will probably become law. And now we're going to add one more level of regulation, paperwork.
Reporting. It's all about reporting.
Training, reporting, all in an effort to mitigate the consequences of taking the Bible, the Christian message of love your brother as yourself, out of the school. And now we're going to try to patch it together. It's a sad commentary.
We're groping to replace the one thing that would fix it. And the very groups who are promoting this bill, if you go on and do a search, are the very groups would have a fit about the Bible being back in school, but now they're demanding you pay for the consequence of removing it.
And the other aspect of these kinds of laws will probably make it itself an act of bullying if you do share your Christian faith.
And the very
thing that
about.
Would fix it would be perhaps, we don't know, but would perhaps be ruled illegal.
And I was going to come back to that. Don mentioned that 80% of bullying is really about the physical attributes of someone. And honestly, Don, in the subcommittee meetings, the examples that legislators gave are already dealt with because many of them were criminal. They weren't just bullying or teasing. These were criminal acts, harmful assaults that are already taken care of under law. And so to be forcing it under this, and then we also know through some of the other programs that suicide is not necessarily preventable. Whatever you do with these programs does not necessarily prevent a suicide. Linda, I want to come back to the Department of Justice in Minnesota. I think it was your article, and I think that article is on Barbwire. Is it barbwire.com?
Right, barbwire.com. Yes, there's an article about the manipulation of this, frankly, of the issue of bullying after following several suicides of children up there, of students, and how the homosexual lobby, headed by the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has millions of dollars and a cadre of lawyers, came up with the Minneapolis and Okehennepin School District and sued the school district it was a lesbian legal group as well. And they sued them because they had taken a position of neutrality on the issue of homosexuality. That is, you could not have teaching that was pro-homosexual or against homosexuality. It was a neutral policy. That was not good enough for the homosexual lobby. They used these suicides to go in and then on behalf of current students who, again, said they were bullied over the issue of homosexuality or gender identity, and that's where the federal government came in. They came in and sued the school, and then here comes Eric Holder and the Department of Justice and also the Federal Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, and they piled on and also filed briefs. And what has ended up happening is the school district caved in. Each of the students got something like $30,000 to $40,000, which is not chump change. And the school district then was saddled with the oversight by the Department of Justice that they have to institute these sweeping pro-homosexual indoctrination training programs. They had to hire a diversity coordinator, a new mental health counselor. All of this is to affirm homosexuality and cross-dressing.
And Department of Justice is going to do oversight.
And the Department of Justice, you figure, well, you're thinking, how did they get in there? They got in there because they misused, and we know they're really good at doing this, Title 10. Title 10 is a federal sex non-discrimination, that is male-female non-discrimination law. They misused it to apply to kids who might be bullied based on gender identity. So they just came in and said, oh, yeah, we have oversight here. This applies, and here we are. And they have said that they're using this as a test case. And now there's a big statewide Minnesota anti-bullying bill. They're going to beef up their bullying program as well. But, Tamara, it sounds terribly scary when you think that your bill would go off school premises. There are so many youth activities out there. The school is going to be responsible for all of this. There's some real harsh, as Dawn mentioned, the fact that the bullying these programs often give kids ideas about bullying, and that's been documented in a recent article written by Eagle Forum. People look up Eagle Forum. Anti-bullying programs don't work, or they are harmful. Some of the Journal of Criminology, I think it was, studied many, many schools across the nation and found that some of these programs are giving potential bullies ideas. There's also some of the documentary films that have been produced by mostly the homosexual lobby or their allies in recent years. One called Bully has been associated. The Los Angeles Times had a report on this, with 2 cases of kids almost immediately after watching that documentary in a school anti-bullying program killed themselves. So it was so depressing. It's a very depressing documentary.
This shouldn't surprise us, and this is what happens in the public schools. They tell us we can't remove a book unless we've read it first. Once you've read it, the poison is there. Once our kids have seen it, there used to be a song that we used to sing in Sunday school way back when, and I'll save you all and not sing it for you, but it was, be careful, little eyes, what you see. And be careful, little ears, what you hear. Be careful, little tongue, what you say. And it went on to say, for the Father up above is watching down in love. But the point was, be careful what you take in. Colossians 2:8 tells us to keep every thought captive. Let not our minds be taken over by vain philosophies. There is proof, Linda, as you say, the more you think about something, the more apt you are to do it, which is why we have commercials. The more we put chocolate in front of you, the more apt you are to do it. The show before this was talking about alcoholism in America and the fact that every alcoholic commercial is a big buff man or a really sexy, good-looking female, and the fact is most people end up drinking alone in their basements. But we promote it one way, and we put the ideas in people's heads. Dawn, you called this long ago, years ago when I interviewed you. You talked about how this, the whole homosexual agenda would make it easier for the state to come in and have control of our kids. And
Yes.
we've got to go to break, but when we come back, I want to start with that point. So I'm here with Danny Carroll. Thank you for joining me in studio. Mm-hmm. I'm here with Dawn Stefanowicz, who is from donstefanowicz.org, and Linda Harvey with missionamerica.com. We'll be right back after these messages. I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time, and we're powered by webcast1live.com, and we're very pleased you're watching along. Thank you.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am Administrative Manager
I am the Senior Technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time. We're powered by webcast1live.com, and I thank you for traveling along with us. We're talking with Linda Harvey with missionamerica.com, Don Stefanowicz, donstefanowicz.org. And if you want to just do a search, Don Stefanowicz, it's Stefanowicz. But if you want to just do a search for Out From Under, the book that she's written about her life growing up at home with a homosexual parent, and Danny Carroll, former Speaker Pro Tem and representative in the Iowa House, and now lobbying for those same causes on a variety of levels as a private citizen. But we're thankful to have all these folks here. Don, I had just asked you about the homosexual agenda, bringing in state control over our children. Explain that connection to folks.
Well, it's interesting because I see this happening internationally, and there's various vehicles that it's done. First of all, we understand that internationally there are organizations under the United Nations that would like to change our attitudes and, of course, bring in full acceptance of sexual orientation and gender identity and so on. Now, the vehicles that this comes in internationally into our federal and state levels, it's interesting. It comes in through whether you call it hate crime laws or, human rights organizations or anti-bullying safe school policies or gay-straight alliances. So there's all these different groups that are interconnected internationally and at the federal level and at the state level. And how that comes in to our, on a day-to-day basis is once these policies are implemented, you now have, not just teachers, but you now have administrators, teachers, and school staff, which could include your bus drivers, your janitorial staff, not just your professional staff like your social workers. You might have some nurses within the school system and psychologists and so on. You have all of these people that are now going to be policing the classrooms, the hallways, and the schoolyards. In addition to that, what we have happening with these anti-bullying type policies is a term that's called the school climate, which paves the way for these policies that are coming in internationally at the federal level and then at the state level and then you might even see it at the municipal level. You can have various policies coming in. And what this school climate does is what it means is that the school education policies that are associated with anti-bullying, safe schools, and so on, they travel and apply to the virtual environments which our children have access to. So not just their computers, their laptops, their flash drives, their cell phones, smartphones, their iPods, and so on, but it moves into all of the social networks that our children and our teens are involved in, and it also includes their email accounts. So the school climate now is encroaching past the schoolyard, past the building and the land of the school, now into our neighborhoods, into our own communities, into our home environments, into our faith communities, and wherever our children would be socializing with their friends from school, which could be the mall, could be the corner variety store, the park, going to a movie theater. So now the state is coming in to the personal lives of our children and into our home environments. So not only are our children going to be policed for their speech and their thoughts, so are the parents. So are the other family members that are connected with this student. So this moves to a level that is quite dark because it's totalitarian in nature. It is a takeover of our family life. What we used to be considered private is now accessible by all levels of state, and now the school administrators are given power through this particular bill that we're dealing with to enter into the most private aspects of our lives, our personal beliefs, our opinions, and our political beliefs as well.
And we already have stories where the junior high student who said, and maybe one of you remember where this was at, who wrote a paper and made the comment that he didn't think that same-sex couples should be allowed to adopt. And a superintendent pulled him into the office and questioned / drilled / interrogated him for quite some time. And I think that was maybe settled later in court as well. I don't know if either of you remember that.
I don't remember that one, but there is a quite famous case in Michigan where a student was in a dialogue with a teacher. The teacher asked the student directly, "What do you think about homosexuality?" And this Catholic boy said, "I believe it's a sin." And the teacher went ballistic. It was on one of these pro-homosexual event days. I think it was Ally Day in the fall, one of the many different days that the homosexual community has devised for kids to become more on board with this agenda. And the teacher was wearing a T-shirt for that day, so the student was rather brave even saying this. The teacher went ballistic and kicked the student out of his class, a boy who'd never had any problem in school before, and told everyone he thought this was bullying and harassment. Well, it eventually went to court, and the student won. A student and his family won damages against this teacher. That was a teacher who, by the way, was head of his local teachers union. So he was quite well known, and he was very much an activist. But the bullying, the way I see some of this, when you look at bakers being sued because they won't, politely decline a wedding cake for a same-sex couple, or photographers being sued, and then all of this happening with this ever expanding school climate environment, the school climate becomes the whole world. It's all a massive bullying campaign against conservative thought and Christian thought and religious liberty and parental rights. I mean, the bullying is going quite the other way. Thank you very much. I mean, we're handing these people tools to, in the current climate, be able to sue, be able to restrict speech, be able to corrupt children freely. And who's going to stand up and say this is wrong? The other element of this that comes into play, and I don't think we ever have time to explore this. When Don said this becomes tyrannical, this becomes totalitarian, think of Obamacare, nationalized health care, and you're talking about children's safety and bullying. Well, there's a health care, mental health, counseling element in that could easily be deployed down the road to come in and be even further interfere with the family and our children's innocence and lives.
I would like to interject something, Linda. I agree where you're coming from and the points that you have just made. And I'll give you an example. What we have here in Canada, specifically in Ontario, where I reside, under our anti-bullying education strategy, the school has the right to pull a student aside who is doing bullying and counsel them, basically providing them sensitivity training, and the parents don't have to be notified.
Oh, great.
As well, the student who says, I think I'm gay, or I feel that I like the same sex, that student can get counseling without parental approval or notification. Right. So what you're seeing happening through this bill is very disturbing. It comes down under various names. It always has an open-ended aspect to it where there can be amendments, where terms are very, very broad, can be redefined or reinterpreted at any point so that everybody is included, except if anyone who holds to Judeo-Christian beliefs and wants to live out their faith on a day-to-day basis, they are the ones that end up being bullied. They are the ones that are not tolerated. Their speech is not allowed. Their practices are restricted, not just their speech. And so we are now in a place where if people don't wake up and smell the roses and say, I really like my freedom right now, and I am not going to give it up. Thank you very much. We need to understand that we can deal with our any aspects of bullying or harassment under the criminal system. We already do have steps in place where police can be notified to deal with situations that are threatening, where there has been whether it is harassment, whether it is defamation of character, whether it is, someone has been harmed in some way physically, or there is a student in a school that is a threat to other students. We already do have in place protective measures to deal with lockdown in the case of, something that would harm or endanger our students within the school. So why do we need anti-bullying legislation? Why do we need safe schools?
And we didn't used to. We didn't used to. When we had the Bible in the school, the worst things were gum chewing, tardiness, and talking in class.
Teachers have known for years how to deal with bullies. They don't need the state of Iowa or any other government coming in and telling them how to deal with bullies. They need some empowerment, some enforcement, some encouragement, and support. Linda, I was just thinking as you were talking, do you see any opportunity for Christian students who might find themselves being criticized for their religious views actually having a case under some of these laws, turning the tables on these folks, so to speak? I know it might take a skillful attorney, but isn't it possible that the forces behind this bullying legislation might in effect be setting up something where the tables could be turned on them?
I think that's going to come down the pike. I mean, that one case I just mentioned was successfully resolved.
Exactly, right.
And so in the current climate, however, it would take just the right judge, because as we know, there are judges that are sold out to the other side. So,
right.
Again, and one of the biggest problems that we have in confronting this is people are reluctant to put their children in the spotlight.
Right.
Because the abuse from the other side, as we well know, I get this, and all of us, you've all gotten this. You get hate mail, you get your name is, smeared on the internet and so on, and things made up. They'll just make stuff up if it's not true, if it's not fact. So, it's one thing for us adults to take that we've chosen to be in this. It's another thing for a 15-year-old to be beat up like that.
And
so,
most of us would do. That's probably what I would do if I were a parent and my student. I'd basically pull him out of school and find another place to go to school.
Right.
Either bring him home or some other district.
And a lot more parents may be
what,
considering that when bills like this and the Common Core take place. If they really, and I hear people say, well, my kid, I talked to him and they're there as a missionary. I get that, but we're not going to send anybody into war at age 12 when the uniform doesn't yet fit. And to send them into this environment when most of us wouldn't want to handle the workforce. We were concerned about having to go through desensitivity or sensitivity training or facing a demotion or getting fired. Why would we put our kids in the same boat?
And the reality is kids are not being missionaries. It's too intimidating an environment. It's just almost impossible to come up against all the smear campaigns that happen. If people don't understand, they choose to not understand. And frankly, they're kids. They're not well informed because they are, again, kids. They don't have all the information. These are hand grenades being thrown into the schoolyard. Well, the whole issue of homosexuality being there at all and us having to deal with it is very, very troubling, and that these kids are not given counseling and that we don't see this exactly as it is. But as you said, Tamara, it's because the Bible and biblical values have been removed from the school, and so their confusion reigns, and our children are suffering for it.
And Danny, we have about 3 minutes before our next break, but in the Iowa bill, the House bill, there were several amendments that were offered. One would have put in the golden rule and simply just said, do unto others as you wish they would do unto you. And swiftly rejected. Well,
partly because of that, and there were a lot of amendments on that, Tamara. Several legislators, interestingly enough, both Republican and Democrat, for different reasons and different purposes.
Really?
The Democrats put some amendments on because obviously it didn't go as far as they thought it should go. And really, when it comes down to the Democratic Party, at least here in Iowa, it's about money. They see this as an opportunity to pump more money into public schools, and so that's what they're going to do. But one interesting amendment by Representative Larry Sheets referenced several world religions, each having some different way of talking about the Golden Rule, and actually had that as in the form of amendment. Tamara, the truth is not lost on people. Government dresses this up in all kinds of legislative language and appropriations and amendments and bills and so on. But when it comes right down to it, people know what your grandmother and my grandmother knew and understood. You treat others the way you want to be treated. You show love, compassion for each other. That's the sad thing about this. The truth is, this legislation isn't going to improve things in the classroom much, because the problem isn't training. The problem isn't understanding reports and money. The problem is a condition of the heart. That's why people behave the way they do. The founders understood that a long time ago. Our Creator understood that. And I was just sitting here thinking, remembering Christ's answer to Pilate when he was asked, so you are a king? And Christ responded, you are right in saying I'm a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to my voice. That's the message People know that's the message that needs to be taught and passed along. Problem is, we've made that illegal in our public schools, and we wonder why today we're dealing with the problems that we are. Really, I'm rather surprised that the problem is not worse than what it is. It's a testimony to the families, to Sunday school teachers, to teachers, that they are doing the best that they can without that message of Christ in the classroom. And so, at least for my part in it, I'm going to continue to try to shed the light of truth, and I hope that God gives me the wherewithal to do that.
We've got to go to a break. We'll be right back with Linda Harvey from missionamerica.com, donstefanowicz.org. Danny Carroll is here in studio. We're talking about the anti-bullying bills that are sweeping this nation. It is a movement. It is not just happenstance, and it is not the popular vote that is doing it. It's a very powerful, well-funded lobby that I would hardly say is a victim or in a position of victim in today's society. Maybe we'll talk about that when we come back, whether it's Ellen DeGeneres, whether it's the movie stars, the singers, to have a protected status, usually you have to have some form of victimhood. And it's hard to say you're in victimhood when you're in the marketable vogue traditions and influence in the culture. But we've got to go to a break. I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time, powered by webcast1live.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this, and maybe we'll talk to parents and folks what they can do to call their legislators to stop this when we get back. So I've already given us 3 topics we better study up while we're on break. We'll be right back.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
The Los Angeles Times reports that some feel that anti-bullying campaigns may work to decrease the problem, but they also mention the report in the Journal of Criminology, which came to a different conclusion, stating students attending schools with bullying prevention programs were more likely to have experienced peer victimization compared to those attending schools without bullying prevention programs. Proof, as Linda said, that when you put it in their heads, they're more likely to do it. And we saw this, Danny, in Northwest Iowa when students, a criminal act, sodomized a fellow wrestler because he was causing them to lose meets or matches or something with a broom. I mean, if I go into the details, it's just too disgusting for air.
Can't even talk about it.
Students would have never done it had they not gotten the idea somewhere. And Linda, you probably can address this better than anyone. The curriculum probably tries to make these things seem very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not normal, but acceptable alternatives.
You know, the whole thing about, well, I know you're addressing Common Core in some of your other programs, and I just did a speech on and did a lot of research on Common Core and the sexuality issues involved, and that's just one more piece. There are so many pieces to this puzzle, Tamara, that are plugging into corruption of our children, and the Common Core sexuality standards, which have not been set in stone but are likely to be the national sexuality standards, are going to feed right into the pro-homosexual lessons, which normalize homosexuality, which feed right into the anti-bullying lessons, which say, oh, anybody who criticizes homosexuality is a potential bully, and they're victimizing you, and they're not supporting you and setting you up for bullying. And it could be harassment by speech, like hate speech, like Dawn said. So, the whole thing all feeds together. It's one seamless agenda, and my recommendation is, parents, if you have the ability at all, get your kids out of the public schools. But we still have the public schools that we have to deal with, so this legislation it sounds like it needs to be stopped.
Absolutely. And Dawn, I want to bring you into the conversation as well. This is our last 20 minutes, just so that you all know. And so if there's a point that I have not brought up, I want you to certainly bring it up. For me, this bill is dangerous because it doesn't protect Christian kids. If we were really, truly concerned about bullying, we would protect every child. Why not every child? Why just a few? And why this few at the cost to so many others? And yet we tried to put amendments on this bill to protect Christian kids because we know Christian kids have been kicked out of research programs at the college level. They have a harder time getting grants for study programs in the sciences. We know they've been kicked out of the psychology programs. And so we know that kids are often persecuted more for their Christian beliefs than any other thing.
Yeah.
Go
Tamara,
ahead.
can I add something?
Yes, please.
I spent a little bit of time looking at brain studies and how children are changed. It's quite interesting because these anti-bullying programs, safe school policies, again, whatever you want to call it, the goal is to take children's natural reactions and change them, where normally a child would really not want to get involved in bullying, not want to, get too caught up in other students and what they look like because they're very self-centered. They're often very concerned about what they look like, what they're feeling. They're in their own world, but yet they want to connect at the peer level. And so what these policies do is they turn those natural reactions into basically into something where the child's natural inhibitions are changed. And they do that through these anti-bullying type programs that introduce novel ideas and this understanding that there are safe methods to deal with bullying. And they begin to desensitize and recondition and alleviate any fears that are associated with sexuality and gender experimentation within these anti-bullying policies. And I was, a number of years back, had been watching what, Glenson was doing, and they have this poster about changing attitudes. And I'll just read it very briefly. The first goal was to change attitudes, then change behaviors, change courses, change directions, change lives, change minds, change policies, change voices, be an ally, and be the change. So that is the goal that we see happening with the anti-bullying policy, where it brings in the LGBT agenda right front and center, and it tosses out parental faith values, family values, our understanding of marriage and family, and it creates within our children this insecurity. And our children need security during their childhood, during their adolescent years, where they're most vulnerable. And so we have to step up to the plate, and we have to say that these anti-bullying policies must be stopped. where we bring in something that would be a better alternative and say, we're going to respect everyone. We're not going to identify people by characteristics or plunk people into groups, because any one of us could fit into 8 or 12 different groups. So we're not going to classify people by groups. We're going to treat everybody the same. And we are going to respect people's values, their faith values, and we're not going to, bring in anti-bullying policies that will teach our children how to bully.
So, Danny Carroll, if people are hearing this, being a former legislator, what do you suggest they do?
Well, the obvious answer is to contact your legislator. They need to hear from everyday people back home on the street, like I was saying before, who understand what you have to do to stand up to bullies, keep children in a safe, loving environment at school. There's no substitute, Tamara, for being informed, know what's going on.
Ignorance is not bliss.
No, it's not.
It could be blistering, but it's not bliss.
But my heart goes out to people because, the other side, the pro-homosexual muscle men using their political muscle to try to get these through, have presented the people with a bit of a perplexing problem. Nobody wants a bully.
Sure.
So how do you oppose legislation that goes after bullies?
I was actually asked that when I spoke at a convention recently, and this is, someone who should be on the same side of the issue as we are. I said, Tamara, do you support bullying? Well, now really, seriously, how silly is that?
And they know that, and it's a pretty clever way of advancing your agenda. But it reminds me of something that Dietrich Bonhoeffer said in his book, and he was involved in a much more serious threat. He was up against a deadly bully. But he said this, listen to his words. He said, "The great masquerade of evil has played havoc with all our ethical concepts. For evil to appear disguised as light, charity, historical necessity, or social justice is quite bewildering to anyone brought up on our traditional ethical concepts. While for the Christian who bases his life on the Bible, it merely confirms the fundamental wickedness of evil." Tamara, Satan doesn't come dressed as a bully. Satan comes in as the government savior that will fight the bully on your behalf, all the while deceiving and advancing an evil agenda. We know the answer. The name of your program reflects the answer. Truth for Our Time. To treat everyone as a child of God, created a little lower than the angels, so precious, so loved, that the Son of God would even give his life on behalf of those people. We know that. That certainly is truth for our time, I would say.
Well said, Danny Carroll.
Amen.
Linda, I do have in front of me actually an article from, I think it's Family Research Council put this out. The clash between football and analyst Craig James and Fox Sports Southwest score one for religious liberty. The former star and broadcaster, who was fired for his mainstream views on marriage after a single day on the job, is handing off to the Texas Workforce Commission. Yesterday, Craig's attorneys at Liberty Institute delivered the good news that the commission is not only launching an investigation of the network, but issued a formal charge of discrimination.
Oh, great. That is just wonderful news, yes.
It is about time, like you were talking about. And we know that the tables may turn around. I think they will. I don't know if y'all remember, but back in the 60s and even before, cigarettes were the go. Whether it was, everybody's sweetheart, Lucille Ball, smoking on the camera with Ethel, or whether it was Dean Martin or our favorite doctor on the show, they were smoking. Everyone was smoking. It was the rage. There were ads with Santa Claus and his favorite brand of cigarette. And now in Iowa, you can't even smoke in a public building. Time won out. Truth run out, as you're saying, Danny. So,
Exactly.
So Linda, in time, we may win out. But in the meantime, We talk about martyrs. Danny just brought up, was it Bonhoeffer?
Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
We bring
yes.
up the martyrs, but the fact is several are killed before we ever remember the martyr.
And so was he.
And so we have to remember, we've got students in the school right now. So before we get this turned around, what do we do, Linda, as parents?
Well, first thing you have to do is to talk to your children and give them the facts about this issue. Our children are, what Danny said is classic manipulation strategies being happening with all these homosexual groups like the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. There's an event coming up in most of the public schools, April 11th, and I believe it probably is not an accident that this bill is being presented right now to capitalize on the media attention that will happen on the Day of Silence, as it is called. It's a day where kids pledge to be silent because of all the silencing of so-called silencing of homosexual and lesbian and transgendered people, and the bullying that's going unpunished, quote unquote. So our kids, the ones even that aren't attracted this way, are going to be manipulated into thinking, oh, these poor people, our soft-hearted children are being manipulated. And we need to stand against this and give them the truth and say, no, it's a wrong behavior. There's already conduct codes in place to punish any mistreatment of anybody, and don't go along with this.
Do we have a day of truth happening at the schools?
There is not any longer that very much. I think the Focus on the Family may have something that they do the next the Monday afterwards, but after that the damage has been done. Well, our coalition has been saying keep your kids home. Don't let them be exposed to, again, not because you're in favor of bullying or you're unkind to anyone, because you don't want them to be manipulated by this false agenda.
Great point, Linda. Don, anything that you want to add to this conversation? And again, you have a unique perspective, having been raised in a home with someone you loved who was a homosexual.
Yes, it's very, very important that children and teens are never labeled with gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, two-spirited, or so on. Those labels don't belong on children and teens. Every child, every teenager needs to know that they are made in the image of God. God has incredible love for each child, for each teenager out there, no matter what their day-to-day struggles are, no matter what they have gone through, no matter what they're facing today or what's ahead in the future. And my hope, my prayer is that our children and our teens are given direction to go to the Scriptures and find the truth in the Word of God, and to find a personal relationship with Jesus Christ so that Christ can guide each child and each teenager out there that will hear this message, will guide them into all truth. And it's very, very important, again, that every child out there knows that he, she, they are loved by our Creator, by our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. And only He could give them the guidance, the direction that they need for their life to get them on the right path so that they can make the best choices in their life. Their lives are valuable. I don't want anyone to give up because they've been hurt, they've been harmed in any way. I want them to have hope and to walk in truth and love.
Well said, Don. Danny, you've said it so well. We hear in the school from the goo to the zoo to you, and then we wonder why these kids are depressed. But Danny, you said it very well the other day in one of our meetings that it's a wonder these kids make it. They're told that they're here by happenstance. They're told that, I don't know if you can remember the phrase. It was such a perfect quote.
Created by chance. They're only here because of someone's choice, and their future is without hope. At least that's the world's way of looking at it. And we know that is not the case, that is not the truth. Tamara, I just want to add, we talk about this legislation in schools. You asked me earlier what parents could do. I used to say when I served in the legislature, whenever I had the opportunity publicly, that the responsibility for the education of children is with the parents, not the school. Parents have the responsibility to educate their children. The schools are hired to help in that. We need to remember that. And the education of our children starts before they go to school and when they get home. We need to know what's going on and support that.
And parents will stand before God, and the school answers to you, and you're responsible for your children, and
That's
you
right.
answer to God. Very well. Linda Harvey, Mission America, her latest book, Maybe He's Not Gay. It's a different perspective on the homosexual agenda, and available online. DonStefanowics.org. Her book is out from under and available online. Danny Carroll, we're waiting on your book, man. Thank you for joining us. And I am Tamara Scott. And, Theodore Roosevelt said to educate a man and not teach him morality is to educate a menace to society. And Danny, you said it. It's a wonder we don't see things so much worse than they are. But this is why we're dealing with all the problems. And for all of those who want to see an improvement, why will you not allow us to do the one thing that was working before 1962? We could fix this if we had the courage to stand and do it. I am Tamara Scott. I thank you for spending your time with us. Be encouraged and never be complacent.